Tell me when. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the What's Up Now annual roundtable discussion group. This year is a little bit different. Our selectmen are running unopposed. Our budget committee is running unopposed. The big vote that needs to be get out is for our school board, which has been a very hot topic always in our town. We're a small town with a big school system and a big presence in the schools. So I'd like to welcome everybody today, and we're going to start down here with John York. And then we have Andrew Cutter, Leanne Romano, Christina. Do you like Christina or Tina?
Either one is fine.
Tina?
Tina's more casual.
Okay, Tina Harrison and Jim Norton. Welcome to the round table. Some of you have been here before, some of you have not. So I figured we'll start with John again. John, you've run before, you've been a member of the board before. Why are you running this time?
Well, I've been off the board for a while, and I just feel that at this point in time, I'll have both my kids will be through the school, and I feel that there needs to be some representation on the town, on the school board, with somebody who doesn't have kids in the school, so that there is some representation there for the taxpayers and stuff.
And your kids have gone through?
My daughter will graduate this year.
Okay.
She is a senior.
Andrew, you've served as the chair of the budget committee?
That's right, Diane. Thanks very much. So the chair of the budget committee. I served on the budget committee for 9 years, 8 years of which have either been a chair or vice chair capacity. I'm the current sitting chair of the budget committee. I've gone through many different school budgets during my time and challenged and working directly with Tina for a number of those years as well. I'm running because, of some of the actions that have happened over the past year and some of the things that from a budget perspective, it didn't jive very well with myself or with taxpayers. And I think there's a need for significant change, and would like to be a part of that change.
Thank you very much. Leanne.
So I kind of agree with Andrew. There's been some things that have gone on over the last few years. I mean, we were in a pandemic, and, I understand we got through it. I threw my hat in, and I think that I'm a strong voice, and I've worked well with the teachers and the staff in this community for 21 years. I've gotten one through. I have 2 in schools right now, one in Campbell, one in Litchfield Middle School. There's a lot of changes that are coming down the pike next year, and I want to be able to help the town and the parents and the teachers to overcome any adversities and, work together. I don't want anyone being frustrated. And that's what I'm seeing right now. And I think that I can be a voice.
Tina.
I'm running again, basically because when I ran for the first time around, I set myself some personal goals for what I wanted to accomplish while I was on the school board. And I feel that in the past 2 years, COVID has kind of taken the center stage, and I want to get back to those goals that I set for myself and for the board. And
So you're not done yet?
I'm not done yet. Yeah,
Okay.
I still have work to do.
Jim, I don't think we've met before. Have you been on any town boards in the past?
I haven't been on any town boards, but I'm very involved at the school.
Okay.
We've been involved with the school since my son was in first grade. He's a sophomore at college now.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's a freshman in high school. I've been involved with the music department at CHS. I'm on the board of CHS Booster Club, as well as CHS Friends of Performing Arts. I'm really running for 2 reasons. One is I think we're doing a 30,000-foot view right now of the schools. We're looking at structures. We're looking at new schools. We're trying to button up LMS. I want to know what's going on, boots on the ground. I want to be the voice for the teachers and the support staff.
Well, the teachers have a union representative. So,
Correct. Yeah.
So we kind of need somebody who's going to represent the people that are on the board, right?
Well, I'm all about teachers and support staff. So.
Okay.
Also, I'm a big supporter of the music department, and right now it's on life support.
Yeah, the arts.
Yeah, the arts are struggling. My son went through that program, and it was probably the best program I've seen in the district. And now it's gone to a point where it's just it's a shell of itself,
Yeah.
and there could be more cuts coming. It needs a lot of attention, and I really want to focus on that.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. It's really nice that you all ran. I truly appreciate that. We're running unopposed for selectmen, unopposed for budget. We really need to implore to the people of Litchfield that you need to run and help run your small town. The general elections, the large elections, they're very nice and they're very important, but it's the local elections that are truly going to change your lives and the lives of your children. So I really appreciate you all running and having an idea of what you want to do. So Christina brings up a valid point. The past 2 years have just been absolutely killer with COVID in more ways than one. I'm going to start with you, Jim. A number of questions have come in on how you feel personally about masks and vaccinations.
Yep.
Do you feel like mask mandates are warranted? Do you feel like vaccinations should be mandated? Can you answer those two questions?
I don't think vaccination should be mandated. I think that's a personal choice. But I did support the reopening plan that the school had. I thought they did a really good job. I think the focus needs to be keeping kids in school. And when the spread is really large like it was, the only way to control the spread is masks. And I supported what they did, and I continue to do that.
So you would vote for a mask mandate if you felt that it was important?
I don't know if it would be a mandate, more of a moving target like they did this year. They had
But you would say
metrics
some-
set up
okay.
that would say, right now, spread's not bad, you don't need masks.
Okay.
Now it's coming up, it's getting really bad, we got to mask them up.
Tina, same for you.
I stand by all the decisions that we made as a board. It was, like you said, it was constantly changing information coming out.
Did the board vote to have volunteers have to vaccinate to come into the schools?
At first we did. So I think what's important is when we had the original reopening plan, we were creating policies and protocols for things. We didn't even know anything about the virus.
That was at the very beginning,
at the
right?
very
That was way
beginning,
before
right.
vaccination.
Right. So that's when the mask mandates came in. That's when we limited volunteers coming into the schools.
That's what Steve said.
You know,
But the vaccination mandate vote was different. That wasn't all that long ago, right?
that was 2 years ago. I mean, well, that
Well,
was
it
about a
couldn't have
year
been
ago.
2 years
It
ago.
was a year ago.
It was a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually for this current school year, we lifted that at the beginning of the school year.
Okay. Are teachers right now forced to be
No.
vaccinated?
No,
But you were going to have volunteers be?
we did, but we lifted it this year once.
Okay.
Because as the information came out, we followed state guidelines and CDC guidelines, and because we're not medical professionals, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think this year we've had a lot more flexibility in our policies and in our plan, and now that every student has an opportunity to be vaccinated, we've been able to lift the mask mandate.
Okay. Leanne, how do you feel about mask mandates and vaccination mandates?
So I've actually talked with a lot of parents, a lot of teachers, and the community, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's parents' choice. I think it's a family decision.
Okay. For both?
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, pretty much with Leanne, right? It's parent choice at this point. I have a sixth grader at LMS and then two at GMS, right? My sixth grader actually chooses to wear a mask because she wants to, right? We're not forcing her to. She's
Yeah.
just accustomed to wearing it at this point. It feels weird not to. You know what I mean?
That's
But
sad, but
But
true.
my two at GMS are like, yep, take it off.
Mhm.
And I guess the way I look at it is, are masks effective? I think maybe at one point, right, at the early days of COVID, when nobody really knew, it made sense to figure this out. But now, if I look at the numbers, especially over the past 6 months or so, when I look at GMS numbers, and the district puts out metrics, right, on COVID tracking, we had a quarter of GMS out, a quarter.
And they were all masked.
And masks were mandatory at GMS.
Right,
So
so
how
I agree
effective
with
are
you.
really masks? You know what I mean? And plus they're all falling down. They're all sneezing in them. Like it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
disgusting. You know what I mean? I think it's parent choice at this point. It's time to be done. And I think from a school board perspective, I will say they were very analytical about it. They were very strategic about,
Yeah,
kind of the measures and,
absolutely, yeah.
and what required masks and what didn't. I do think that, the lifting of masks was probably made a few weeks too late for the district, but ultimately, they have been trying to have facts and analytics behind
Okay.
it. So
John?
I totally believe in that it's parents' choice. I don't think there's anything more than that. I mean, these kids are under 18. Parents are responsible. I also
What
believe
about
that.
staff being mandated to have vaccinations?
Well, I mean, you can't make somebody get a shot, and everybody has to make their own personal decision. But at the same time, if the schools are open, you have to be able to teach. And one of the things I do applaud the schools is that, in the last 2 years, Campbell was one of 2 school districts in the state that didn't go remote, except after maybe some holidays when people traveled and stuff, and it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I applaud the school district. I
Yeah.
applaud, the
too.
parents
And the
who
teachers
helped
for
push
everything
that.
they did, yeah.
I mean, they put together a committee of 75 people who couldn't agree on a lot. And so, as should have been at the beginning, it fell to the school board and the administration to create a plan. And I think they worked their way through it correctly.
Nice. Very good. Thank you. And we do have a lot of thanks that we owe to those teachers and those school board members who definitely took the brunt of the stress that we all felt about COVID and the homeschooling of the children and all the mental health issues that went along with it. So definitely thanks to all of you guys that worked in the trenches. So another one of the questions that I've gotten is that there seems to be a disconnect between the current board and staff, as well as community members. How would you work harder to ensure faith and trust were restored? Leanne, I'm going to start with you this time.
Of course.
I'm sorry. Would
No,
you
it's
rather have
okay.
I start with Tina?
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I've been, again, navigating this system for 21 years, and I have successfully, emailed and gotten answers from everybody, including Christina.
Mhm.
So I'll work with anybody. I don't care, but I want to say, and I really feel as though these teachers are not able to say what I'm hearing. I have reached out. And
Why?
I think they're afraid.
Okay.
Their contract says that they can be moved around. And from what I'm hearing, that's what's going to happen next year. We're losing 7 teachers, and there's a handful more.
In LMS.
And yeah. And my child is in LMS. She can't wait to get out. The morale is so low right now. And that concerns me. But what are they going to do? What are they going to, we may not be
How are
able
you
to
going to
open the
reconnect
doors.
the community, though, to that?
So here's my thought.
How are
and
you
I've-
going to ensure that people are more engaged?
I've been talking to them, and I will present that at a board meeting, and I will work towards solutions. I'm going to say, this is what the concern is. We need to change that. This is what we have to do. I'm not on the board yet, so I don't know what I am able to do, but I'm certainly going to give it a shot. I'm not someone that won't ask questions. I've already spoken to the architects. I've spoken to the teachers. I've spoken to Frank Edelblut.
So you feel like by gathering information that you can get the community more involved?
I do.
Okay.
I feel as though I
Tina.
can do that.
Well, community involvement has always been one of my goals that I set for myself. So, I started the school board Facebook page. I've answered questions that have come up. I've really tried to make a presence on social media and been there for people to reach out with questions. Again, that has been because COVID has taken center stage. I haven't had enough time to really develop those, but I do have a plan for more community forums like we had with the CRT to allow people to come together and share their thoughts and opinions, and more outreach, and communication from not just the school board, but also from the administrators and the teachers. I haven't, not since elementary school really, have I gotten an email from a lot of teachers saying, hey, this is how your kid's doing in my class. I feel like as you go up through high school, that kind of gets lost as the kids get more responsibility.
Mhm.
The teachers aren't always reaching out to parents. And it's definitely up to parents to reach out to the teachers as well. So I feel like that that connection is really important. It's a partnership.
What do you think the disconnect is, though? There is definitely a disconnect.
So the disconnect between the community and the schools,
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I think a lot of people in town feel that the school is its own entity, and I've tried really hard over the past 6 years to partner with the town and try to find ways that we can connect and collaborate, because like you said at the beginning, we're a very small town with a proportionately large school district. And so it's critical that our community is a part of our schools and involved in our schools. Again, COVID has made it, has kind of limited our options on how we can gather together and the events that we can hold and things like that. I'm looking forward to getting back to normal and upping that kind of community involvement.
Okay. Jim.
I think social media really plays a part in this. I think people are quick to put something on Facebook to voice their opinion versus coming to the school board to talk to them about it. And that just creates so many people picking away at it with the lack of information that's out there. So I think and I don't have that answer. How do you get more participation from the public? But
Well, and it seems like we need to work on restoring some faith and trust.
And I think I keep hearing about the football team and that the town voted the football team down and then the school board did some backdoor to make it come back. I don't know if that happened. I just hear these rumors throughout Campbell. And it seems that this board seems to get blamed for old stuff that they didn't have control of. And I think we have to let the board prove that they're trustworthy. This Article 8.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that hasn't been changed either. When I printed
We
that,
can't change it. We can't change the warrant article. that what you
it
mean?
was voted that we were going to at the deliberative.
On the
At the
ballot,
deliberative.
right, on the ballot, the amount has been changed.
It has,
Yeah.
okay, because in the paperwork that I got.
So the Article 8, that brought a lot of people to think that the school was trying to create a slush fund and wasn't going to use it for what they intended purposes was.
We can
And-
talk about 8, but let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that's
Yeah,
some
yeah,
of the
yeah.
past brings up these negative feelings to the school board. So we got to figure out a way of getting the past behind us and move forward.
Okay, John.
I do agree a little bit with Jim that townspeople are so quick to go to Facebook and write quickly random thoughts of how they feel about something. I'll use Thursday as an example. Members of the community went out and were railing on the superintendent about canceling school for Friday, that he should do that. Well, okay, we all knew snow was coming, but people took shots at the superintendent and the school board for.
Well, we can't
But-
shut down Facebook.
Well, I understand that, but I understand that, but that goes to Jim's question, and the school board can't respond to these things. I mean, Tina talks about there's a Facebook page, but in retrospect, she can't really, when she responds on that page, she's responding as Tina Harrison. She can't respond as Tina Harrison's school board member. See, the school board can only speak in this room when they meet. Other than that, they can't have an opinion or voice their opinion out in public. Now, one-on-one with somebody, they can say, well, this is how I feel about something. But as a whole, the school board has one voice, and it resonates from their meetings in this room. And so if the community has an opinion on something, they have to bring it to the school board. You know, the school board shouldn't have to go out and monitor Facebook.
So basically, you don't think that the school board needs to make any changes?
No,
That
I
it's
think,
the-
well,
that it's
I
the
will tell you,
community
that
causing the
I've had a
discord.
running battle with the school board for the last year about making, so the policies of the meeting are that everything that they discuss in their meeting, any sheet of paper, any report, everything needs to be available. Basically, in the old days, we had a table in the corner. People walked in, they picked up everything that they were supposed to discuss. And I've had a running battle with the superintendent of schools and with Tina about making that information readily available. Now, we have worked a little bit better. It is, if you go to the agenda on their web page on the day of a meeting, you have a couple of days before, you'll see that. But they are still talking about stuff at their meeting in which they're not attaching documents to, so that people at home can follow through. So there does need to be more transparency on the school board and more openness. And that's been a running battle for as long as I've been part of the school board and the school system.
Okay,
And so that I do feel there are things they can do, but I also believe that there's an unrealistic expectation by the community at times what the school board can and cannot do.
We can all be like that. The plow guys. Yeah. It
Shoveling the
definitely-
snow out front.
Yes, some people will come in and complain that we can't afford to do that. Andrew,
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, I mean, so.
do you
large-
remember the question at this point?
Faith and trust. Faith and trust restored with the school district and the community. Got it.
Yes. Close the disconnect.
So, I mean, look, I mean, John, I mean, you're partly right in my opinion. I think the big thing for me is it's awkward going to a school board meeting. It's beyond awkward. It's uncomfortable. And that's the environment that's being driven largely by the board and the superintendent,
Yeah.
right? As an example, 3-4 weeks ago, the school board was having a conversation about restricting community input, limiting it specifically to the agenda, limiting it to 3 minutes. They're all going to sit there with their hands folded and say, yep, thank you very much, move on, right? If you want to engage with the community, address their concerns when they're presenting to you and don't restrict. We're a small town. We're not Manchester. We're not Nashville where you need to stick 100% to the agenda, very scripted. And then when somebody comes to you with a concern, perhaps over their kid, over, some program that their child is participating in, and you just say, yep, and nothing gets actioned, that doesn't build trust, right? That needs to change in this town.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Now we're going to kind of flip a little bit. We started to talk about CRT. There's a lot of questions about how you all feel about CRT. CRT in a broad range. People are dealing with it very specifically, very broad. If you could tell me, Jim, we'll start with you.
Why me?
Because it's been so long since you got to speak.
There are so many definitions of CRT that to say whether you're in favor of it or not in favor of it all depends on what your definition is.
Okay, that's a great answer.
I think we're spending time on this when, well, let me start again. We have real issues in the school. We have teachers that are overworked. We have schools that are understaffed. We have this whole music program that I'll be continually talking about. But every time with CRT is not being taught in our schools. So when we talk about something that isn't happening in our schools, we're taking away from the talking about the issues that are happening in our schools. So
Okay, Tina?
Well, CRT was brought to the school board in a meeting,
Yep.
and when it was, that was one of those situations where it was kind of, it wasn't on the agenda, so the school board didn't have an opportunity to respond right there and then. We have to each do our own research, think about the things, listen to input, and then come back and either take action on it or have it on discussion at a future meeting. So that's what we did. I scheduled a community forum and invited the whole town to come and share their concerns. And in that community forum, the district, Dr. Jetty and I shared the policies that are in place for if any parent or community member has any concerns about something that is being taught in our schools, what to do in that case. Again, it starts with a conversation with the classroom teacher if you hear something that happened that you don't disagree with. But CRT as a concept, it's not suitable, it's not appropriate for K-12. So it's not in our curriculum.
Okay.
And it won't be. So like Jim said, it's, there are issues going on in our schools that we need time to address. And, I think if there are concerns, there's a policy and procedure in place to address those concerns. And, we welcome.
And that email
kind
that
of
went out
input.
with all the links.
Yep. And I took ownership for not vetting all of the links. I think each of us had a personal responsibility that we dropped the ball. I personally did not vet the links, so I took ownership of that and I apologized for it. And in the future, I think we learned a good lesson about vetting every
Just
single
attaching
thing that
things.
goes out, right?
Yeah.
Not instead of attaching things from sources that we don't have control over.
Okay. Very good. Leanne?
CRT is not being taught in Litchfield. It is a college course, and that's where it should stay. At this point, we have great teachers. I work closely with LMS, and they're teaching their regular subjects. We need to concentrate on our traditional academics and get our scores up and, not teach things that are not part of academic success.
Okay.
Yeah, simply stated, I agree with Jim and Leanne on this one, right? Depends upon your definition. It should be in college. And quite frankly, CRT, we have a dark history as a country, right? We do. And in my opinion, we should learn from that, not change history, but learn from that and teach our kids what we did wrong and how we grow from that together, right? And that's what I do.
John.
Well, of all the years that I was on the school board and approving curriculum, and I believe it's the same process today, there are a lot of eyes on our curriculum. And so I think it's very hard to be teaching something that's not part of our curriculum. That's not to say that a personal viewpoint in a classroom can't be taught or espoused, but that could be a teaching style for a teacher. And I believe the teachers need that freedom. So I don't believe that's an issue here in Litchfield.
Do you think teachers should be teaching what their beliefs are as far as their political party beliefs?
No. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Because each teacher has an approved curriculum,
Okay.
which gives them boundaries of where they should go.
Yep.
They can go as far to the left, as far to the right, or stay in the middle, whatever those boundaries may be. But there's boundaries, and for the most part, I believe our teachers stay inside the boundaries. And I've had two kids go from first grade to 12th grade here, and I've had conversations with both of them, and they've not espoused to me that based on the national conversation today, that they had any exposure to that in any of the schools.
Okay.
So I think that if we continue, like as Jim said, we're not talking about real issues when we're talking about something that's not happening in Litchfield.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Andrew. I'm going to ask everybody this question, yes or no. One of our watchers asked, have you received any money or endorsements of any groups besides family to run?
No.
No.
Okay. Let's see, we talked about that. How can we bring the arts back into the school, short and long term? The band and choir are much, much smaller. Plays, musical concerts have been few and far between and often without an audience. Tina.
I agree,
That one you
100%.
didn't give to me first?
I'm not going to make it easy for you.
I get CRT, I don't get music.
Yeah.
I'll take music. That's fine.
Go ahead.
No, Jim and I are very much on the same page. We've talked about this. The last 2 years, COVID has taken a serious hit on our once fantastic and thriving music and performing arts programs. Kids haven't been able to rehearse. We haven't been able to have audiences because we're concerned about safety. That hasn't been a school board decision. That's been up to the teaching staff, the music department. So
So are we back to business as usual?
yes,
We're going to go forward.
I'm hearing
Well,
you say no.
no, we are in a
That was such a mean question.
No, we're not. It's not because kids have found other interests, right? So when things are limited, they find other things to occupy their time. They join other clubs and groups.
We need to make it more fancy.
So we're in a
schmancy form.
We're definitely in a rebuilding phase at the middle school and at the high school. I know at GMS, we have a new music teacher.
Yeah,
And
'cause that was gonna
she
be my
is
next question.
fantastic, and I know she has about, my daughter helps with chorus. I think she has about 70 kids in 3rd and 4th grade chorus, if not more. So I think the rebuilding is happening. It's going to take a few years to do, but as we're not as restricted, we can have more shows, have more plays, have more concerts, and open those things back up to the community, which I think is what we really
How
need.
does that sit with you for an answer, Jim? I know
Well, I think you got to go.
you're here
in
because
the,
you're upset about.
I'm not upset.
Not
I'm
upset, but not upset, but
You gotta-
that's your reason you're running.
Yeah,
So
you got to go to the
it's
Wayback
your-
Machine and say when Phil Martin retired,
Yeah.
they didn't replace him. They brought in a part-time person to come in there. Carolyn Lake come up
Yeah.
and do a part-time piece.
Mhm.
That was the beginning of the.
Before COVID.
Yeah, it
Okay.
took away a lot of things. Then Jill Pennington left. That was a giant blow to our.
That was drama, right?
She was chorus. She did the
Drama,
play.
dance,
And she did the musicals.
Okay. But she did a public speaking thing too, didn't she?
She's
Yeah,
she
that was
very,
really very good. I know
yeah.
my son partook of that
Yeah.
years and years ago.
So once, I lost my train of thought. now.
I'm sorry.
Once Jill left,
Yeah.
the pandemic hit. The high school got away from the AB schedule, which meant these kids in March of 2020 left and went home to do remote learning. And I experienced it. Remote band is nothing.
Yeah.
It was horrible. These kids, when school started out in September, because they didn't have the AB schedule, chorus was the first piece that went. So chorus went from September till the end of December or middle of January. Then band started up the middle of January. So all these kids that left in March didn't play in the band, didn't get to play in the band until January. So almost a full year, they didn't get to be with their bandmates. That really, really killed the program. That piece right there, it crushed it.
So how would you fix it?
First of all, we need to put another person back into the high school. I honestly feel I know the numbers aren't there right now, but if you have 2 people in there, we've got to get this. We sub out now the musical and the play. It's just not working. We need a full-time person that comes in that can run the plays, run the musicals. And you know what? We start a pep band and a marching band, and we get them to play at the football games. We get them to play at the basketball games, and that teacher can also help with that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. John.
Well, I when I was on the school board before, I championed the band and the music and stuff. I thought it was very important. I felt that, for every, my extra dollar they spent on sports, that they needed to spend more on band and music. So that was something that I was a voice for all the time. I believe there's an opportunity with the next principal at the high school, that part of his curriculum or background needs to be more art-centered than sports-centered. I believe we've had enough principals in the last 12 years or so that have been more worried about putting banners in the gym than having full auditoriums for musicals and band and stuff. So I think it starts at the very top. And I don't think it starts with the school board or it starts with the superintendent. It starts with the person sitting in the principal's office and the message that person will be portraying out into those departments.
Okay.
And so I think that's a very big wannabe for the next principal.
Okay. Andrew?
I agree with Tina, right? I mean, so we're in a rebuilding phase for arts. We have a great music teacher at GMS. You're seeing a lot of kids, including my son, by the way, who is not a singer, right? But he's in chorus because he's excited about it, right? And that's how it starts to rebuild. That will
It's from the
slowly
younger
filter
grades
through
up.
LMS and
Yep.
get into CHS, where it's more of a community that will again make its way back up into the high school.
My turn?
Yes, Nina.
My child, my sophomore, was in the play.
Did an excellent job.
Yes,
Yes.
Excellent
I was
job.
very proud. I mean, you need to have arts, you do, but you also have to make sensible budget decisions as well. So maybe fundraising, maybe we might want to concentrate more on
There
something like
used to
that.
be a Friends of Music.
There is.
Yeah, there is. It's still there.
Still going?
I'm
Okay, you're there.
part of
okay.
that. It's the
Yeah.
Friends of Performing Arts at CHS.
And it's been
Okay.
terrific. I feel like it's taken a back seat
Yeah.
because of many reasons. And, everyone says social media, but you know what? That's how people find out about what's going on. I don't even think they had a basketball game, which was like, a huge, huge deal that happened at the same exact time as the play that had been rescheduled. And it was a small audience. It was a, great play. They did a great job, but we need to get the word out somehow. So I feel as though we need to, work on that, but not take from something else.
Okay. We're losing teachers,
Done.
like a sieve. Okay. Why do you think we're losing teachers? We'll start with you, John.
Well, I don't know. I haven't been part of those conversations, but
What would you do to find
well,
out?
when I was on the school board, we lost teachers all the time. The teachers, and what I have found in talking to some teachers who have left Litchfield, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Some things that I've been on the school board, we always championed was, the interaction between the administration and the teachers. And sometimes there's a conflict between that dialogue. And, we have new principals the Campbell will be third in probably the last 3 years, I believe. So we'll have turned over all the leadership in the schools. And, sometimes teachers and leadership, they may not see eye to eye about things. And you know what? Then it's okay for teachers to go.
Okay.
And you just go out and hire different teachers.
Wow. Okay. Andrew.
Yeah, we're losing teachers simply because they feel like they don't have a voice, and there's a massive fear of retaliation. In fact, we even saw a deliberative, right? We saw it live at deliberative happen from the superintendent to a community member, but also a teacher in our school, which was beyond unacceptable. That is resonating not only through that one teacher, but also through all three schools. And when you don't feel like you have a voice, you don't feel like you are impacting or have effect or can drive change, it's very demoralizing. And we're losing teachers at a record rate because of that reason.
That's why I'm running. I've been talking to teachers. They've reached out. They're happy I'm running because they feel like I will help them to have a voice. But the residents have also reached out to me. We need a voice. We need to be heard. Parents are reaching out saying, why aren't we included? I feel like we don't know what's going on. So with that in mind, I mean, the teachers are leaving because of exactly what Andrew just said. They don't feel like they're being heard, and they're fearful for retaliation.
Tina, they have a union representative.
Yeah.
But there are day-to-day interactions that
Mhm.
occur outside of that union representative
With the teachers, you mean?
with the teachers.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why do you think we're losing them?
Well, I think we have lost teachers in the past, certainly since I've been on the board. We lost a number of teachers the year the contract didn't pass. They went to other districts where they could earn more money because of repeated failed contracts. They didn't make up. They could go, like, we had one teacher, it was Jill Pennington actually, went to another district and could earn $10,000 more a year. And that's why she left. It broke her heart to leave Litchfield because that's where her heart was, but she needed to do what was best for her family. We lose.
It does seem that we're losing teachers that hearts really are. I know that there's been some people that are not actually of retirement age that have taken retirement that are stating reasons why they left. Are we
Right.
exiting interviewing these people?
Absolutely. Every teacher gets an exit interview, and that data is shared with the superintendent and with the board. And
What about being
but
shared
what
with
they
the
say
public?
in an exit interview may not match up with what they say to someone in public or
Yeah.
someone that they meet up with on the streets. And so what I'm seeing is it's not just in Litchfield. It's a nationwide exodus of teachers. We cannot, I mean, this year in particular, we cannot find qualified teachers. We couldn't find a Spanish teacher. We couldn't, we had a hard time finding a science teacher until
what do
the
we
last
do?
minute. So what do we do? I think a lot of it is, I really believe a lot of it is, and I know I keep citing COVID, but it has been 2 years of nonstop stress. I think national politics is also having a profound impact on how teachers' confidence about what they teach and how they teach. I think when we set up a link to report a teacher for teaching divisive concepts, then instead of reaching out to that teacher and saying, "Hey, what's going on? I heard, I'm concerned about this." I think that puts a lot of teachers on edge.
We did that?
The state has, yeah.
Oh.
The state has, and not in Litchfield in particular, but yeah, there's a lot of political, it's kind of, there's a lot of political distrust of teachers, and I think that's trickling down as well. So what do? We keep talking with them. We sit down at the table and we solve these problems together instead of continuing the decades of, again, distrust and fear of retaliation, and we work on that. But we and I have, I have worked with them.
Diane, can I interject?
Sure.
So I understand what you're saying,
Mhm.
but the teachers are not all leaving because of pay. Some of them
No, I agree.
don't want to leave because they're frustrated with the direction that whoever's in charge is taking.
Mhm.
You've got people that have specialties and they're being moved down to like, you take an eighth grade teacher, you put them in the fifth grade. You've got someone that teaches advanced classes being told to teach something different. Someone that, it's just,
And
yeah.
if I may, I mean, some of the teachers and support staff that I've talked to as a part of, trying to explain their position, right, and trying to drive change. And the response from the SAU has been, if you don't like it, quit.
Mm.
And so they're like, all right, I will. Go figure it out. And that's we're losing teachers and support staff members for that reason. It's coming from the SAU in some cases saying, if you don't like it, leave.
Yeah, and I disagree with that statement. I don't think that's okay at all. I do think we need to come together, but there are decisions that administrators need to make to support the entire program, and a teacher might disagree with that. Our focus is always to keep to do what's best for the kids.
Yeah, and on that note, a majority of the students. Wait.
Did you want to give Jim a chance to speak to
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Jim, I'm so sorry.
So I was just waiting.
I'm
Wait,
losing
get back
track.
to music, Jim. It's a tough one there,
Want to put it to music?
Sure.
Okay.
No,
I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay.
Why are we losing teachers?
I think everyone here, what they've said is accurate. Another big factor is there is a lot of stress between the budget committee and the school board. And the way this town runs, if the
And
budget
that's
committee,
making teachers quit?
well, if the budget committee doesn't approve a warrant article, it's not going to pass. Most times the town looks towards the budget committee for warrant articles.
Okay.
Warrant article approved by the budget committee sounds good. I'll vote for it. We've had tech integrators that weren't supported by the budget committee. That warrant article failed. We've missed the boat a
Are you
couple
talking about
times.
the Chromebooks?
No, tech integrator. Last year, we had
Oh,
two tech integrators on the warrant article. Only one passed because only one was recommended by the budget committee, not two.
Okay.
And I think that put pressure on our kids. It put pressure on our teachers. They needed those tech integrators. They needed the help. And they couldn't get that help because the warrant articles weren't supported. Teachers' contracts, I was so happy this year that they all approved it unanimously. But in the past, it hasn't been that way. And they see this, and like Tina says, they can make more money elsewhere. And if we can't get contracts that the budget committee can support to help us drive those contracts to the town, we're going to keep losing our teachers.
Okay. Okay. That was a tough one.
Can I respond to that?
Do you want to?
Current sitting budget committee chair, I feel obligated to.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah,
I got other ones for you. So
the budget committee is not going to agree with everything, right? In this particular year, we have, and the budget committee actually changed one of our votes on the LMS project from not recommend to recommend at deliberative, and it will be displayed as 5-3 as recommend, right? And we did support the teacher contracts this year, and it was supported unanimously by the budget committee. But in some cases and in some years, right, the ask from the school district on top of the increase in budgets are just too much for the taxpayer to absorb. And there has to be a balance, right? And I remember one year as sitting on the budget committee, the school board presented a budget to the budget committee that wasn't reviewed. It had no challenge by the school board, and it was over $1 million in an increase and saying, here you go deal with it. Okay, well, if that's going to be the position from the school board to the budget committee, we will deal with it, and you're not going to like it, right? And Tina's done a good job talking about transparency, right? And trying to bridge that gap. I think we continue to learn from that. And even this year, when we talk about transparency, the budget committee didn't have all the information we needed to do our job effectively by the time we needed it, right? Our schedule and how we run the committee is put out a year in advance. True, right? Once elected in March, right, or we have the new board in place in March, our next meeting, we're defining what exactly the days, exactly the objectives of the meeting are for the entire next year. So we know the date we need to receive the school budget, the date the town's presenting. And when those dates are not delivered, essentially it puts pressure on the budget committee because we can't make the effective decisions that we need to for the taxpayers and for the town, which is
Okay.
exactly what happened this year, right? And part of the rationale was for the budget committee not receiving information was, well, the school didn't want to provide it because they were fearful that we were going to make preconceived notions about budget reductions, and that wasn't okay with them. So their option was just not to send it.
Did that respond to your?
Oh, yeah. No,
Okay.
like I said,
Okay.
this year, I was extremely happy that they supported it
Yeah.
and it went through. But
That was kind of interesting to hear.
oh,
See what else-
absolutely.
what
yeah.
else happened?
I
It was.
actually, can I respond to that?
Sure.
We did supply the budget. We had, as expected, we just didn't have it in the format that you had requested.
Well,
We have
so-
a different format. It's not an Excel spreadsheet like the town budget is. We have software, so it reports out the budget in that format. And the entire budget committee was invited to school board meetings where we went through the budget line by line, step by step. And I thought the process was much more streamlined this year.
That part of it was, but when we don't have the soft copy, we can't analyze it, right? Going through a 160-page binder.
Oh, I agree, but-
functions, right, and we knew what the ask was, so we could receive the soft copy and do some analytics on it.
Mhm.
And the answer was, we're not providing it to you. That was the answer.
Okay. I think we covered this one.
Sounds good.
Okay. Here's the question I was actually looking for before that is that how can we help students and staff with even greater anxiety, depression since COVID? Is there group or individual counseling available? How are these folks identified? Is there any periodic check-ins on persons or a paper scale? I'm not sure what that means. But what I do know is that since COVID has hit and the kids went to remote and then they went to masks and all the pressures and stuff, that the suicide rate among children has escalated. How can we help? Christina, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I think that has been a focus. You know, I know the teachers have voiced that they want more PD in mental health issues so that they can help identify it in kids. All of our teachers are trained in, you know, they're working, they're the boots on the ground. They're the ones working with the kids. So if a kid is having a hard time, they're suddenly struggling. All of us are mandated reporters. We know how to get kids the help they need. We've added staff at all three schools, school psychologists, counseling, and all of those opportunities are available. I know each of the schools has group counseling. You know, they have a lunch bunch and they gather kids who are showing signs of maybe depression or anxiety. But it's not a perfect scale. I mean, each building has about 400 kids in it. And we also really need to rely on parents to reach out. And I've done it myself. If my kids are having a really tough time, I reach out to the guidance counselor and I say, hey, could you just check in with her or him on, you know.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Jim, do you want to speak to this? This is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw a couple of points at it. So my son goes to WPI.
Mhm.
His first year was all remote as a freshman, and he decided to stay home and he did in his room. His sophomore year, which is now, he's on campus. They've had 6 suicides since September when they opened up.
I just got a chill.
Yeah. They have gone and opened everything up now. Events are back, trying to make it more of a community. And we really need to do that. We have freshmen, sophomore, and juniors that have never experienced a CHS pep rally. That was one of the greatest things that my son loved. They put on your colors, you go out, you cheer, you try to get the trophy. We've got to get back to those things. And maybe something that's so normal that we keep.
More dangerous than COVID is I think
Yeah.
sometimes the mental things that our kids have gone through. And it seems from your answers to vaccines and mask mandates that this group of people here gets that, which is good to see.
Yeah. And the one thing I think there's nothing more normal, because that's what they want. They want normal. There's nothing more normal than a snow day. As stupid as that sounds.
No, I agree.
Like,
Parents
why
begged
can't we
for it.
have snow
Begged
days
for it.
and get rid of these remote days? Because every time you put the
Lizard
kid back
bag
in his
days, yeah.
every time you put the kid back in his room, tell him to open his Chromebook. He's having a flashback to when 2020 was, that he's stuck in his room trying to learn again.
Right,
That's
with
just,
his mother mad at him because she can't
Yeah.
teach him, and yeah.
Yep.
John, do you have anything to say on
Well,
this point?
my son, who also is a sophomore in college, and spent his Christmas break substituting at LMS and GMS, and as I talked to him about his experiences and stuff, and he shared with me his, what he saw at GMS is that the younger kids, how they struggled socializing, how they struggled working as groups.
Yeah.
And part of what I would, as a school board member, I would want more resources at GMS and LMS, because we need to catch up students.
Absolutely.
There's first, second graders that are going now and will be going into third grade or fourth grade, and they may still be at second grade learning skills, which is just a frightful thing to think about in 4 years. Not that they go through the middle school, but now they're going into high school, where learning skills are really a high priority. And so I have a great concern about our learning skills with the younger kids, the middle school. The high school kids, learning skills are still a self-motivated type of driven thing. I mean, parents need to make sure their parents need to be more involved right now, more than ever if they have kids in
Well,
the
I
school.
think they're more involved than they've
And-
ever been, John.
Well,
If you listen to them.
you may listen to them, but they have to be involved. They have to ask the questions. I know my daughter, very top student at CHS, and she just gets mad at me, but I ask the questions anyway. They can get mad at me all they want, but I'm going to ask the questions. I ask the questions of my son, because you know what? I'm concerned about those same things. I want to hear from my kids that they're doing okay. And, I think the teachers are doing a great job of asking those questions or observing for those things, and the parents. I think everybody's doing that, but all it takes is one little failure to rock a community. And so I think there's a lot of people that need to be participating in this.
I agree.
And it really still starts with the parents asking those questions in the evenings at home that are tough. And their kids don't want to answer them, but you have to ask the questions.
Andrew.
No, I agree with John. Simply stated, being a parent of 2 elementary and an LMS student, right? This has been real. And to teach 3 kids during COVID has been an immense challenge while we're both trying to work. And the amount of face or screen time that the kids have now, and the lack of social interaction that they have, is a complete 180 over what it once was. And that needs to change, because they don't know very well how to talk to others, how to present to others, right? And you're right, as they grow older, how are we supporting them to be able to get in front of a crowd, to talk and to present, right? It is a concern.
We're talking about third graders who have they went through first grade now, second grade now.
And you're
third
right
grade.
with the competencies, right? And you're right with, third graders on a second grade, and what are we doing to catch them up?
Right. That was going to be a
they're
question
held with
later
the
on.
iReady tests and all this to the same standard of that grade,
Yes.
right? With no considerations at all for the 1.5 to 2 years that they just went through.
So do you think that there should be some testing done of where kids actually are?
I think
That
there's just-
hasn't been maybe developed yet.
I just
that
think there's
needs
more
to come out
support
of-
needed, right?
Yeah.
We need support to be able to say to these kids, it's okay. We get it, right? And I think the
Yeah.
counselors are doing a nice job. And I think that just needs to continue, right? And if there are students that are behind, what are we doing to get them caught up?
Leanne?
So two names I really want to get out there. Mrs. Ellis at LMS. She's
Rock star.
absolutely a rock star.
What does she do there?
She is the
Guidance counselor.
counselor, the
Okay, I
guidance
just want
counselor.
to make sure
Yeah.
not everybody would.
And then Bill Hicks. I don't know his title, but he has his own
Bill
classroom.
Hicks is the man,
But
yeah.
he is
He's at CHS,
Also a rock
right?
he
star.
is
Yeah.
at CHS. I believe he was brought in when my oldest daughter, was at that school, and he has been an integral part of the mental health of those that are possibly falling apart in school. They go right to his classroom. He fluffs them up. He gives them a place to, feel comfortable, and sends them back out into the world. I don't know how he's really like
He's been
very
there.
similar to me. Nope, just go. You got
That's
this. You got this, kiddo. Counselors are needed. We have to keep that in mind when we're doing contracts. And also, I believe it's Article 4, the support staff. You got to make sure they're taken care of. Another thing too is these kids need normalcy, and not the normalcy that people are saying is the new normalcy. They need the real normalcy. Masks off. Let's see a smile. The kids don't even smile because no one's seeing it.
Right.
So they come home, they're deflated. Like, I just can't stand school. I don't want to hear that. You're my A student. I need you to just, you got to get through this. And, playing sports is important. My kid did it with masks, but it's really
Tough one,
difficult.
too.
So you just want to make sure that the normalcy is back. You said something about pep rallies. Well, it was School Spirit Day at LMS, and they didn't actually have an assembly. They all dressed up. Well, how did they get the school spirit stick? They had counted the colors. I emailed, the staff to say, hey, this is another tradition taken from the 8th graders because we're not going to Washington, D.C. You're right. Parents need to be involved. I'm here.
Why are we not going to Washington, D.C.?
Because a lot
I
of
don't know
reasons.
exactly, but I'm going to assume vaccine mandates, and we don't.
Well, we could ask Tina. She's
Yeah,
president.
if you
or
don't mind me
Go
chair.
taking
ahead.
the
Go ahead,
time.
Tina.
The Washington D.C. trip was canceled because of lack of interest. A lot of parents were backing out because they were concerned about. A lot of people couldn't, and the more people that backed out, the price got
Yes.
higher and higher, as you know. But yeah, there was a lot of concern about vaccine mandates in Washington D.C. to get in to see many of the tourist sites that they visit. So those are in place, and so rather than
And that's a decision that needed to be made back in the fall anyway, when
right,
when
And
nobody knew what it was going to be like in the spring.
There's been a question. What about doing a survey monkey to get teachers' thoughts about what's going on in the school system? right
Fabulous
now?
idea.
Hmm?
Great idea.
Great idea. Okay.
If you can do it anonymously, yes.
we do all the time.
You do survey monkey.
We do. We pull
Anonymous
teachers.
ones.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Um,
Dr. J is big on surveys, so I would
Yeah,
not being that
and
close. I
the
would
teachers
anticipate
are
that.
reluctant to fill them out, and so we
Why
don't
are they
get.
reluctant to fill them out?
They have a perception and perception is reality, right? So this is something that we're working on. There's a perception that they will get called out for being honest, and that we
What's
will
driving
tell
that?
you.
That's I'm hearing
don't
it
know.
over and over and over
I
again.
honestly don't know,
Okay, Jim.
but I do think that has been longstanding. I think that
What's the
culture has
question
been
now?
there for.
Okay.
I got lost in all of this now.
Thank you so much.
Surveys.
What about doing a survey?
Survey.
monkey
Okay, I
with
was still on
teens
the
to get teachers' thoughts.
social. Like Tina says, I think they do them now, but they're just so reluctant to fill them out. I don't know, unless you can have it done by a independent company.
Oh, there's independent
Yeah.
companies that come in and
Yeah.
do that.
But I mean,
Okay,
that's
the thought.
cost to the taxpayer
Right.
and things. But
Well,
Survey Monkey is not is very independent.
I would think that.
I mean, you only get the results. I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah.
put the survey out, you ask the questions. They don't tell you who answered the questions. They just said 100 people responded. This is how they responded. So I don't know
Yeah,
how much more
that's very.
protected you
Yep.
can be on that. But I will tell you that teachers have been reluctant to answer questions.
Mhm.
Now, I've been involved with the school board since 2010. So I can only speak from then to now. But they've had the same comments and fears since 2010.
Yeah.
We're afraid that we'll be retaliated. Now, when I was on the school board, we never retaliated against a single employee that I know have.
There are
So I
there are so
think
many
that-
safeguards in place to prevent
Yes,
that
I
from
mean,
happening.
first of all, every teacher is protected by their union. So there's really not a lot the administration can do specifically because we have a set of rules that we follow in dealing with any employee of the district. And so I think that the notion that if they're honest with I mean, we all work. We all have asked questions by our specific employer, whoever that may be. And we're expected to answer those questions to the best of our ability.
Right.
And I don't believe that teachers should fear that. I mean, it's an expectation. How, if they have issues, then there's a way for them to bring those to the school board through their union representatives. Then we won't know anything about that. And, or they bring them directly to the school board. I mean, the retaliatory process.
So you don't think there's
I
retaliation?
think that's just
Okay.
something on their side, not something from the
That
school board
happens.
side.
And
Okay.
to that point, I mean, in the real world or the outside of the teachers world, at our place of business, that people feel the same way. I mean, they do feel like, oh, if I say something, I might get in trouble. I think that's just human nature too. I just think
But so you do feel there's no retaliation? You don't
I
think
do.
there's
I do not
retaliation?
feel it.
So on that line, another question that's asked is, do you support Jetty's contract?
What
John?
contract?
Jetty's, Dr. Jetty?
Did he just get a new contract?
He's getting a new contract. Is that correct?
We're doing the formal evaluation, superintendent's evaluation right before the vote,
March 7th, right?
March 7th.
Yeah, well, he's on an annual contract, I believe, isn't it? Is it an annual contract?
I believe so.
Normally, the superintendent's on an annual contract or
Have we,
2-year
has anybody
contract.
seen that contract besides the school board? His actual
It's
contract?
public information. Anybody can see
No,
it.
you can see his salary. You can't see his contract.
No, you
I-
can see his
I
contract.
think you can
It's
Have
part
you
of-
request
read
it.
his contract?
It's part of the school
Yeah, you
board.
can request
It's got to be, it's part of a school board meeting. It's got to be approved
It's
in a
done.
meeting.
It's done in private.
No,
done in-
it can't be done in private.
The discussion is done in private because it's a personnel issue, but
Yes.
the voting to approve the contract is done in public.
With,
So where is the contract? Though?
You need
well,
to
it
request
should be-
it from the
should
district.
be part of their agenda meeting where you can just click on it and open it and read it.
But it's not, and the budget committee has requested it several times. We've never received it.
Dr. Jetty's contract?
Yes.
I've never seen that request.
Anyhow, it's back to the school board being more transparent because, again, anything they discuss in their meeting, Mr. or Mrs. Public should be able to click on the link on the agenda and open that document and review it with them.
Okay. Leanne, wait, I skipped you, right, Andrew? Do you support Jetty's contract?
Well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if I support it.
Well,
can't answer that
I'll
question.
answer this question. I support Dr. Jetty as a superintendent of the school, continuing to move forward.
So maybe that's part of that question is, do you evaluate, would you evaluate him as having done a good job? so
Yes.
far? Okay.
No.
Andrew? No. Leanne?
I haven't seen the contract. I have not personally had a problem with Dr. Jetty. Every question I've ever asked has been answered, but I will tell you that the residents and parents do not. So, take
Tina,
that.
you've worked directly with him.
Yeah, and I support him.
Okay. Jim?
I think Dr. Jetty does an excellent job when it comes to explaining what's going on, whether it's a new school being built, the LMS project. When he goes in front of the budget committee, I think he's very prepared. I think he has his downfalls is his relationships with
Yeah.
the employees.
Yes.
So I would say I do support him, but he has to work on that piece of the puzzle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answers, people. Here's another one that kind of took me by surprise. Opinions on banning books in school libraries that make students/parents uncomfortable. Have we done that? We banned books?
We in the past, I think there was one book that came up recently, I think in the last year, and a parent saw a news article that it was being banned in other districts, I believe. We did have it in our library catalog, and we have a policy and a procedure in place for anybody to bring concerning materials.
And do
Up
we?
through the
Have we?
process.
I mean, have we
I don't
actually
think-
banned a book in Litchfield?
Not while I have been on.
Well,
the
I
board.
was on the board.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to ban a book. I mean,
Yeah.
I want my
Ban
kids
it.
We're not gonna
reading.
burn- we're not
We're
gonna
not
burn the
Animal
books
Farm.
now.
I mean, I feel like that's more of a national.
Yeah.
That's a national issue that's happening in some parts of the country.
Right,
Personally,
but I'm asking if it's happening in Litchfield. And if it did, how would you react to it?
I would vote no.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Yeah, I would
Andrew.
vote no as well.
Leanne?
Yeah, I'd vote no.
I vote no.
I vote no.
Okay, there we go. That's
I'd
a
rather
good
have my
one.
kids reading a book than in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, even a
Fastest
bad
way to
book.
get kids
I mean,
reading a
I-
book
I don't
is
care
to
what,
ban it.
right, yep. Come up with his own thoughts and opinions.
Mhm. Wow, you guys, we've covered a lot in an hour, don't you think? That's because you guys have been to the point. We've already got that one. Okay. Should the budget be zeroed out and start from scratch, wants versus needs? I think you kind of touched on that, Andrew.
Well, let's answer that question. 82% of the budget
Thank you.
is set in stone.
Right.
So you,
82%.
82% of the budget
it?
is set in stone.
32. What is the
It's salaries and benefits.
Yeah, 82 is salaries and benefits, just about 82.
82%
So
of
it-
how much money though?
So sure,
24 million. 24
so
million.
sure, you
24
can
million?
take 18% of the budget, make it zero, but inevitably it's just going to go right back to where it was. I mean, the tweaking of the budget is, there's so many arguments about the budget, but the fact of the matter is the school budget is it is what it is, and the fact that it shouldn't grow very hugely, but it's going to grow. I mean, we're going to vote to add $400,000 to the budget, and then next year in September when we get the budget, everybody's going to be yelling that the budget is going up. Well, you voted in March to raise the budget. So yes, the budget is going to go up in September when it's presented because you voted for it, and you voted for it for 2 warrant articles for the teachers and sports staff, which I do support. But we forget what we did in March. We all forget
Oh, we
in
forget to
September.
vote as a town.
Well, we do, but they
82% of the budget is set in stone. What percentage of the voters actually vote on it is pathetic.
but
Come out
that's
and vote, people.
well, then, people should get motivated to rally the people to come out and vote.
I've been trying, and that's part of what this is all about. My main objective with this is that I would go to vote, and being a busy, like a lot of our population, a busy parent that's trying to work and trying to raise my kids and do sports and everything else, is I didn't necessarily have time to attend all the meetings, and I got there to vote, and I had no clue who anybody was. So the first year that I did this, it was to put
We're
your
not
face
talking
out
about
there.
individuals here. We're talking about the warrant articles right now, the budget in that
But people
sense.
still have to vote on those.
They do. They're going to get something in the mail this week that they'll be able to review and whatever.
What part of the population will actually come out and vote on those, John?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
pathetic.
they were very motivated to come out and vote in 2000. And if this is as important as people are claiming it is, in their discussion here, in their conversations with townspeople, well, then we should have a huge turnout.
I hope so.
But if we don't have a huge turnout, then the concerns aren't as, you can look at that and say the concerns aren't as warranted as people are saying they are.
Okay. Andrew, should the budget be zeroed out?
Zero-based budgeting. The town did this, 2 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, where they actually wiped it all out, and they had each function, right, each department come back and justify every dollar that was being asked. And I think the lessons learned from there is there was definitely some cost savings, but a lot of it is fixed, right? And we're all expecting or all experiencing cost increases. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it makes so much sense on the school side. Again, there's a lot of fixed prices because of the teacher contract. That's not going to change. You have about $4 to $5 million. That is everything else in that budget: grounds, facilities, that type of thing. And I think what you're still going to see is increased cost because of just where we are in the world today.
Which is scary because not only is the town asking for more money, but everybody is asking for more money: gas, groceries,
But I mean,
etc.
even as an example, right, when we go through both the town and school budgets, one of the line items that we budget for is fuel, right? Oil, fuel, gas, all that stuff.
Mhm.
When we budgeted it, don't quote me, but it was somewhere in the 320 range, 310 range. And now it's up to 360, 370. So we already know as of today that our budget and what we have for those line items is not going to be sufficient. You know, and we're budgeting For a
But
budget,
yet we always have money left over at the end
Well,
to
that's
buy these big projects that the
Right.
voters have voted down in the past.
point being though is when we go through the budgets in November, December, we're budgeting for what we see in the next 7 months because that's when the budget starts,
Mhm.
right? And it's a shot in the dark.
Leanne?
Excuse me. You said something that I think is very incorrect. You made a comment that the town and the school were using money at the end of the year to pay for things that the townspeople had voted down. First of all, that's against the law, so that the school nor the town are doing those things.
Okay.
Now, they may do things that are necessary that they feel that are necessary for the school or the town with end of year funds, which they are allowed to do. But if a town votes no on something,
Like the
specifically,
Chromebooks. Say the Chromebooks.
the school board or the town cannot spend any money on that thing for at least a year. Period. So if they vote,
So if they vote no on it,
Right.
and then it goes a year, and then they have funds left over, they can do it the next
they
year.
could do, yes, they can.
Okay, so even though they can not put it up to a
But
vote.
but then they pay the price for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
In that sense. I mean, but it's not something like,
So it isn't
well, just
against
because
the
they have
law
end
that
of
they
year
did
funds.
do it. It's just
Well, I
not
would-
they're
I would
doing it
say
within
that-
the year that it was voted down.
Well, I would say when I was on the school board, that if we put something before
That
the
seems like a
town and they voted
technical-
no, we didn't normally do something that was voted no. That when I was on the school board, we needed something and the town didn't vote for it,
Mhm.
then we would work to try to get the town to support it if we could. But at the same time, there are things that you have a responsibility for. Like when I was on the school board, we started replacing windows at GMS. And people were all mad at us because the school was so old. Well, the school was so old, you wouldn't vote to get a new school, so we had to start fixing the old school. It's the same thing
Seems
this year
pretty
with
reasonable.
LMS. We're not asking for a new LMS. We're asking to fix an old school that needs updating. And the voters need to understand that. I mean, they move here, they said, because we have great school systems and great schools. Well, we need to support our buildings and our infrastructure, or people aren't going to want to come to our town and live because our
Mhm.
schools are crumbling.
Agreed. Okay, let's see. Do we want to talk about? I'll ask this one last one, and then I think we're going to move on to some warrant articles. I'm just getting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pause here, but I'm off track. We'll start with you, Jim. Can you give me 3 words about you that make you 3 qualities that you have that make you a good school board member?
Communication skills. I also think outside the box, come up with solutions that maybe you don't see right away. And I'm a good listener.
Tina?
Honest, compassionate, or passionate, and you threw me off, Jim. I had a-
I want to say honest too.
honest, passionate collaborator.
Okay.
I will definitely say I'm honest. I'm very vocal and I am a great listener, but there's so much more.
Good leadership, effective challenge, honesty, and trustworthiness.
That
I
was
think the one
fine.
thing that makes a great school board member is to sit in the meetings and ask the tough questions to whatever's being presented to, whether you support it or not. You have to ask questions from all sides. And I felt I did that very well when I was on the school board.
There is a question in here that I was kind of going to ask, kind of not going to ask, but I guess I'm going to ask it. There seems to be a lot of unanimous votes on the school board. One mind, one thought. Have you ever voted against?
Oh yeah.
So there are votes that are out there that you voted against and everybody else voted for, or
Yeah, I
Few
think
people
that
voting.
happens a lot. I think the current board, for whatever reason, just happens to be kind of on the same page. So I don't think having unanimous votes is a bad thing. I think we all bring our own different perspectives, and we all listen to different people, and we all, we discuss items, and sometimes like our perspectives are swayed a little bit by the discussions that we have. I think that's a good thing. But for whatever reason, we just happen to all be on the same page right now. That's not always the case, and it may not, and that's not a bad thing either.
So as somebody who hasn't been on a board, would you have a problem if 5 of the people were voting one way or 4 of the
Oh,
people?
no.
No?
No. I mean,
Would you have a problem voting against if you disagree?
Absolutely not.
Andrew, Andrew, I know you don't.
Have you seen the budget meetings?
Yeah, I have. And I love that there's that kind of, because you kind of need some diversity in thought to get new ideas, etc.
When I
John,
was on the school board, there was a lot of 3-2 and 2-3 votes. I mean, we had very, very 5 different thought processes.
who was on with you last time you were on?
Oh,
board?
geez, it's been a while.
Yeah, Brian.
Dennis and
Right.
Jason Garrett and
Brian,
Brian,
Derek.
Derek. We had a lot of, we had, and then we also had a lot of 5-0 vote, 5-0 votes, and even with that very diverse, because a lot of times through the process, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the 5-0 vote, because in the discussion, the idea is you want to get to a consensus, but there does come a time when you may not get to that consensus, and things need to be voted, and you have to vote, how you feel about a certain topic, whatever it may
Okay.
be. So yeah.
There's another thing I would be very remiss if I didn't bring up, and that is the competency-based grading. It's been a problem or been a discussion, been a source of stress and anguish since it was first introduced. And we're still in there. We're still there.
Yep.
And I hate to pick on you. I'm going to pick on John.
That's good. I will tell you that when I was on the school board and it first came, I did vote no against it, but it continued because
And it's
at the
still
time
there.
I was a minority vote on that, and I know it's continuing. I'm very glad that I'm glad that it stalled. I'm glad that my daughter was graduating this year. Because I'm very concerned about the process. I don't believe there's a lot of transparency and information out there for the public to digest what's going on. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about it in the town. But if there is, then that falls at the feet of the school board for not being able to provide enough information either through their meetings or to the public about this. And I do know that the idea behind it is a very good idea because, CHS made the decision to go to competency-based learning. And I used to question that as a school board. So I go, so why are we having competency-based learning, but we're having ABC grading scale?
Right.
And so, I was very frustrated with the high school in that process back then. And I've always said many, many times. And
Would you vote against competency-based if you were given?
well,
an
based on
option?
the information I have right now, I would be reluctant to move it into the actual into practice. Now, I would expect as a school board member that I will be gathering much more information at that. So I would say I need to be open to it because I understand the concept and the idea behind it. But I don't believe there's enough information out there for the public to be secure in what's going on with it.
Until their kid has a problem and then they really dig in.
Right.
Jim, how do you
Yeah.
feel about competency-based?
I was really nervous about it when they brought it up. My son was graduating in 2020. He didn't have to go through that. I mean, like John said, Campbell was competency-based, but we did finals, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But when my daughter got to high school this year, we were really concerned about it. She learns differently than my son. My son's a science and math kid, and she's thriving under it. So I think, to John's point, is we've got to
So
get
you
out.
go in and you look at the competencies when you get your grading
Yeah.
reports and stuff.
Yeah. But to John's point is we got to get more people to understand it more because I still don't fully understand it. But I think
I think it's kind of basic.
Our teachers don't understand it.
it
well,
is
how they
basic,
grade
but
it.
it's complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what they did, what Tina and Dr. Jetty did for the LMS project would be a fantastic forum to do for competency-based learning.
So from what I remember, the biggest problem with it is that you could have, you have 4 competencies and they're equally weighted. And one competency might have 20 tests and one might have 1.
Mhm.
So if you tank 1, then you've failed that competency.
Right.
And then you're done.
Right.
And that was, to me, was like they didn't have as many opportunities to test on that competency.
Right.
And so to me, it seemed like if they would have fixed it so that there was equal amount of tests between those competencies,
Right.
then it probably would have fixed the problem. Tina, has anything like that been looked at?
Yes, it's a work in progress. So
But that doesn't seem hard to do.
it is when you have a staff who's been doing it one way for 20 years and believing that this is the competency base, this is the grading protocols, this is how we do it at CHS. And so what's happened is we have a new curriculum director. When CHS opened in 2000, they were one of the first schools in the state to do competency-based learning. And what I believe happened at the time was parents were really concerned about my kids getting a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Is college going to really understand what that means?
Mm.
So we reverted back to the traditional ABCD grading system. In the meantime, other schools in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire has adopted a competency standards-based, framework that it expects all schools to report out on. What happened was other schools in New Hampshire and around the country went that other step to do the grading reporting consistently with the competency-based learning. We did not. So we're kind of at a crossroads now where, especially at CHS, teachers have been doing it one way. There are other ways to go about doing it, and that's where the disconnect is. That's what's getting teachers frustrated. That's what's getting the curriculum director frustrated. That's what we need is, like Jim and I
It's
agree.
my understanding the teachers don't understand how to.
They
Well, as a
understand.
teacher,
Well,
it's
right
being
now,
driven
there's
by
a
the
big thing
teachers.
going on, though.
But the teachers are, I don't understand that comment because the teachers are like they're the ones involved in developing. The program's not being developed by the administration and the school board. It's being
Mhm.
developed by the teachers.
That's what I thought.
So,
Right, right.
so the comment that they don't understand it is very confusing
Mhm.
But there's
because
something new that's happened, and it perhaps it's been
right,
driven
and
by
we
the curriculum
implement-
director.
when we
Something
adopt-
that's new, John.
Right. When we adopted Power School as our student information
There we go.
system, there was a lot of confusion about this is how I grade my classes. Power School's not set up to accept it that way. So I need to learn how to format how I grade to work with Power School. So that's the big disconnect that happened in the past 2 years. And that is something that we're continuing to work on. Mary Widman is, we have a grading and reporting task force.
I've heard the teachers are like going out onto other platforms to try and figure out how to do this.
They're
We're
trying.
not
I think
necessarily
some
providing
teachers.
it to
I
them.
think right. I think some teachers are trying to find workarounds.
Yeah.
But we need more education on the part of the teachers. We need more education on the part of the parents, and that's in the works for the coming years, and something that I feel really passionate about. So if I'm elected again, that work will. I know I'll be pushing for that work to continue.
Okay, because a lot of those workshops that I thought said were going to occur have not. Leanne, do you have any experience with competency-based?
Just my kids being in school, and it is completely confusing. I basically have to talk to the teacher. So what is this? What does this mean? What does this child have to do? I've been lucky that I'm a keyboard warrior and I'm out there emailing and just basically getting the questions answered. But you can fail one competency and then have to make it up or just fail that class altogether. It's very confusing, and the teachers are very confused.
Oh, I did
And I
wanna-
know that you said that they're driving this, but like you said,
It's inconsistent.
right, it's inconsistent, and they need training, and we need to provide that training so that they can also, let the children know and the parents.
Right. I do want to.
Andrew-
Can I just comment really quickly on the
Sure.
failing one assignment? That is something that we have addressed and that we are working to address. I know the curriculum director is working with teachers on a district-wide retake policy. The biggest part of this is making it consistent across the board, so
Right,
that
I agree.
when you go in and check on my algebra grade, I can check the English grade and it's the same kind of thing. It's the same thing. So it is a work.
At
in
least the
progress.
same
It is happening.
quantity. It
Right.
doesn't have to, I mean, there's going
Right.
to be different, one will be a project, one will be a test, but at least there's like the same
And
amount
that's up to the
of.
teacher discretion at this point. There's a
I
minimum
know.
set, but it's up to the teachers at this point.
I know it was anyway.
Yeah.
Andrew,
I don't know that I have anything
to add,
to add to that.
you
right?
don't have anybody in there yet.
I do. I mean, my daughter is certainly at LMS and she's getting the competency
Oh,
based
they
power
moved
school.
it down to LMS?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
one.
And she's
Working
getting
so
the-
well, let's put it
and she's
everywhere.
getting the summative, right? They call it a summative score,
I'm
right?
sorry.
And she takes one test, and for whatever reason, if it was off or if there's parts missing for whatever reason in that, her grade will tank. Now, for me, I very closely monitor Power School so I can stay on top of that. Right? I have alerts
Yeah.
that go everywhere.
Mhm.
So when there is a change, hey, what happened? Do we need to email your teacher so we're on top of it? But I can imagine a lot of people don't do that. Right. And it's a surprise at the end of the period where they say, yep, you know what?
First time it happens.
I
to you
didn't
as
do
a
so well.
parent. First thing.
I don't know
time
what it takes to
happens.
unwind that
Yeah.
or to look at other options or to improve, right? But that's something that I agree the school district needs to do better.
For a while there, our schools were working really hard to make sure that we had a lot of college-bound kids. We still are. We focus on the kid getting into college. And then we ended up with a glut of very well-trained people without jobs to go to. That might be changing a little bit with COVID. However, we still ended up without enough plumbers and electricians,
Yeah, the trades.
trades that we could have supported for kids that may not have been more college interested. What are your thoughts on encouraging trades after graduation, John?
Well, I think that CTE classes, I 100% support those classes, and I firmly believe that parents. I mean, I think this is something they should start exposing to parents when they're coming from 8th grade into their freshman year, even though they don't start taking it until their junior year, I believe, junior and senior year. But they have to be prepared with their schedule from their freshman and sophomore year to be prepared to be able to go into those classes if that's what they want to take. And so I believe that there is a decision process to be made there. And I, I'm so glad that we're part of Pinkerton and Alvern's programs. I think it was one of the last things we voted on when I left the school board. And I think those two programs are two of the best programs in the state. I know before we were with Nashville, we spent more time driving than getting to the actual class for our students. So, I think we should promote it more. I think we should promote it more.
Thank you.
in
Andrew?
that.
Yeah, fully support. The trades are very, very important, and there's a lot of kids that will benefit from that. So, and I think at some point there needs to be an evaluation. Does it make sense to bring one of those trade classes to our town if there's enough interest?
It is nice to have Alvern and Pinkerton and Nashua College too, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 We used to. We don't send high schoolers there, but they can take classes at
You
Nashville.
take classes online?
Yeah.
They're an online option.
No,
No,
they
they
can
can
attend
go to
classes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Any community college.
Okay.
I checked out both. I checked out Alvern and Pinkerton with my husband and my child, and the programs are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I had pushed for it from the very first day that my child went to Campbell High School, and it is only, or it's changed recently, but it was allowed for juniors and seniors. And if we start earlier, I think they're going to have a better background, and you can take more than one class over there.
Okay.
So it's definitely a program you want to support.
How do you feel about encouraging? I know it's
Yeah.
such a huge stress, these kids that are not necessarily driven for college, that
Yeah,
are-
and that's
it's
totally.
stress for them because they do feel pushed, not just by the school system, but by their parents. And
I agree. I think there's been a history of we push for 90% college rate, but our district goals have changed. Now our goal isn't that we have a 90% of kids are going to a 4-year college. It's everybody has a plan after high school. Everybody is either going into the workforce. Everybody's going to, everybody has a plan, a career, college or career plan set for them by the time they graduate. And I fully support, all of the different fields that kids can go into.
Same. I think we need to push more about it, talk more about it in the high school and stuff, but it needs to be there. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need people working on our cars. We need all that stuff.
Have I missed anything? I think we've covered a lot of ground. There was some great questions. I thank everybody for their questions. I appreciate it. It makes a good interview. It gets you what you need to know before you make up your mind. So now I want to talk a little bit about the operating budget, the articles rather, the warrant articles that were voted on. The biggest one, Article 2, is recommended by the school board, recommended by the budget committee. That is our teachers' increases, which do seem to be something that everybody's worried about, teachers leaving. This contract has been supported by everybody. Then we have
And can I just add, for those watching, that's really important that the town get behind and pass on both the teacher and support staff.
Yeah.
Right? These are
Yeah.
modest, in my mind, modest increases that are warranted in extraordinary times.
Thank you.
And then Article 6 has been one that has been a lot of discussion about, and it's complicated. And the first thing that I saw when I looked at it is I didn't know why it wasn't broken up. Because if you lose this one, then you don't have anything to pay for. And you're not asking for a special meeting if this one asks. You've got a lot of ones that ask for a special meeting if it fails. You don't
Those are
on
for
this one.
contracts.
If it fails, we come back next year with a proposal to dig up the underground tank and replace the oil heat systems. So
Okay.
that's why it's not, if it,
So it's not going to fail this year in this budget then?
what do you mean? How do you mean?
Well, you're saying next year,
Right. If this is an article that's,
for next year, for 2022, 23.
I think she's trying to say that if it fails, we'll limp along for the next year until
Yeah.
next March, and then put together another warrant article for the HVAC at LMS.
Right.
But we
Thank
may
you.
not be able to.
We may not. That was the argument made by the superintendent. We may not be able to,
Right.
right?
But we
So what
don't
do
have
we
a
do?
fail-safe on an article to say that
That's
if
right.
we need to. I mean, the warrant article seems to be really difficultly phrased.
which I understand it's all,
Is that the one for LMS?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
got everything in there. And if it fails, we've got nothing. And it's got some very controversial discussions of how things are going to be paid for, which was kind of addressed. The year 2 expenses
Mhm.
are still unknown.
because we just, Thursday night, got the numbers from the bank.
So we could be able to get them into
Yes.
this, when you vote on this, then you
You'll
will be
have the
able to know what the
information.
second year,
It won't be on the ballot, but we'll have the information out.
but it won't be on the ballot.
We can't put it on the ballot. We can't change what the balance
already
is
been printed.
now at this point.
Okay. So you are going to be voting on something on Article 6 that you have no idea how much it's going to cost you going forward for years 2 or 3.
They'll know how much it costs.
Mhm.
The problem is it won't be directly on the ballot for people to see,
Right.
right? Because of the delays
So
in getting
people that are
information.
looking at the ballot, though, are not going to.
Isn't it a request for $4.9 million?
It's 4.95 million.
It's going to cost $4.9 million over how many years?
And
If only it was that simple, John.
right? Because the plan was
If
to
only
have,
it was that
but that's the
simple.
plan. The plan had it over 20 years.
Okay.
The bank didn't approve 20 years. The bank approved 16 years.
Okay.
So now the price per
It's not
year
as simple
goes
as that,
up.
John.
Sure it is. It's 4.9 million divided by 16.
If everything in this warrant article works out like it's supposed to, it's going to be.
Well, okay. What are the options here? They're going to spend $1 million on LMS to just fix some things in LMS.
$4 million.
Not- Yeah, well, but if it gets
And actually,
voted no,
it's $7 million, we'll just say.
Yeah, the project is on here at 4.9. It's actually a $7.9
Right.
million project.
okay, for a school that's 35 years old.
Mhm.
that
I'm not
hasn't been-
talking about whether or not it's needed, John. I'm saying
Sure
what's
we
on-
are.
I'm saying what's on here, what people are voting for.
But the question is, this is, do we, the voters voted in 5 members of the school board to analyze and look at this stuff. They had the budget committee who looked at it. Did you guys support it as a budget committee?
At deliberative, we changed our vote to 5-3. Yes.
Okay. So it has the support of the budget committee that's reviewed the numbers, the school board who's been involved in this process for as long as they can be involved in this process. When I was on the school board, LMS needed to be fixed, and we just couldn't find the right process to get it done at that point in time because the town was so mad about what happened with the GMS trying to get that school. They wouldn't approve. They weren't improving any improvements on the schools. Well, okay, we pushed the ball down the court about 10 years now. LMS didn't get any better, and GMS didn't get any better. So the voters need to decide whether or not they're going to support their infrastructure and whether or not they're going to support the people to put together the information. And if they're not, then they need to get people that they do trust in the position of that information. Now, I firmly believe the 5 people on the school board did a great job on this. And I think Dr. J did a great job. Maybe their delivery and their style and their things like that may not have been perfect, but the information and the need is 100% necessary.
Okay. So you believe in the solar, you believe in the whole bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I support this article because I'm thinking more long-term in terms of what a yes vote means versus a no vote means and the predicament that I believe the district will be in if this gets voted down.
I'm worried about if it gets voted down.
It doesn't
as well.
change the need. The need is still there, right? And now what you're doing is continuing to defer it down the road when we're having increased costs, as we're seeing, et cetera. One of the comments that I made to the school and to the superintendent was, geez, I would have liked to have seen options or somehow break this out. Yeah, I'm not, what I don't like is the solar behind this. I think solar costs are coming down. I don't know that it makes sense at this time to invest in that specifically. But if there was a way to break it out into here's the HVAC, here's the need, the HVAC costs we know needs to happen, right? And that costs X. Let's go after that instead of having this one lump sum thing that's all together that is now a lot of money that some people may not support parts of when they're still.
And it's a lease, not a bond, which confuses me as
Right.
well.
It's a municipal lease purchase for the equipment.
Why is it a lease, not a bond?
A bond, with a bond, it would have ended up costing more money. We would have had to wait until July 1st to enter into a bond. We know that interest rates are climbing at this point, and it would have been, 1/4 to 0.5% more on top of what a bond would cost. The implementation costs of a bond are higher. And we would miss out if we waited for a July 1st bond. We would miss out on the entire first year of electricity savings and oil savings. We wouldn't be able to start the project until probably mid-year. And that would be, time lost and more and continuing with fuel and Eversource electricity.
Do you want to just address the question? Because
Yeah.
I know Ms. Douglas addressed this too, right?
Mhm.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Why did the board decide lease versus bond when the perception is you're trying to fudge the vote and not get supermajority?
Right. That's the perception. And I get that perception. The truth is because of the time and the money.
So to be clear, what they're talking about is that if you take a bond out that is going to be used on an article, then when we vote as a community, that vote has to be a supermajority. If it's a lease payment and they're able to use that, then it just needs to be a majority of one.
Right.
So that's what they're talking about, just so
Right.
that everybody understands that. And that kind of was the reason for my question was,
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
are we trying
Yeah.
to avoid having to get a supermajority?
No,
Okay. That's all,
No.
all I'm asking.
we're trying to save taxpayers money and get it done in an efficient way so we can continue to have savings.
Okay. Leanne?
I was under the impression that if it doesn't pass, that it goes to the default budget. Is that correct?
That's the
That's the
operating
budget.
budget. This
Yeah.
is the LMS project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Separate.
I went on the tour. There's a need. We have to figure out if we as residents can budget this into our own family budgets. It's definitely, it's a big, ticket
My
item.
concern is with the way the warrant article is written, is that and I don't care what you think, John, that's what I'm trying to say is the way the warrant article is written is it doesn't give all the information that's going to be used after the decision is made. There's
Oh,
a lot of
that's
known
no different than
things.
any warrant article, though, Diane. I mean, the teacher's contract warrant article doesn't explain how that $400,000 is going to get spent. The operating budget. I mean, people are looking for details in the warrant articles, and they're never there. You can't. I mean, I'm hoping that the school board will put all the information that is necessary, put it up on their school board webpage or the district website, and people can go review all those things. But you can't go into details in warrant articles. You have to.
The amount
that.
could be in there. The amount and what the reason that they give you your tax impact statement is so that when you're looking at it, you can say, this is going to cost me blank for my house. And this, we don't know if this is accurate or not, anywhere near accurate.
What's on the warrant article
Well, you
is
can't
accurate for
spend
year one.
more.
Right.
There are other
Spend
monies
less.
that are being
Yes,
used though.
you can spend less.
You don't have to spend everything that's approved,
Right.
right? You
And if
can.
it comes
But
in
there are
lower,
other monies that are going to be spent on this that aren't in here.
It can't be. I mean,
Yeah.
what do we mean
There's
by this?
grants.
Grants and, maybe some encumbrances.
Existing
There's-
funding. Yeah.
And they're looking for rebates and refunds and stuff that may or may not come. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about.
But
There are other monies that are not being stated on this, and you're right, it should be here. That's
But
what
how
I'm
would they
saying.
state that money? My question is you're saying it's not stated correctly and there's grants and stuff, but you can't put in that there's a chance we're going to get a grant and the number may be lower. That's not how warrant articles work.
No, there's a chance we might get a grant, and the number will be this if we get it.
But even if they don't get the grant, they could still only spend $4.9 million. They can't spend $5.7 million. If it's an $800,000 grant, well, then they'll have to figure that out or cut $800,000 out of the project because they, being the school board, made a decision
So our
that they are
$4.9
comfortable in
million
that grant.
Yeah, so our $4.9 million could be gone because we don't have enough to fulfill it. I don't know.
Well, I don't believe that they would start a project with their $800,000 loss. I think they would probably fix what they can
Okay.
and not start a project halfway, or we would have 5 new school board members pretty quickly.
Okay. And then I guess I have nothing else. On that note, are you sure you're
Oh,
still
did you
in
get
the
to speak
school
on
board?
Article 6?
Oh, are you for Article 6?
I am for Article 6.
I am
have,
for fixing the LMS, right?
I fear if it doesn't pass, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to our schools. The one question I have on it is that balloon payment and where that money comes from. I guess it's coming from the budget. We're going to cut a piece of the budget out to
Or
So-
year-end funds?
whole year-end funds. So that's a little,
Well, if this is approved, right, you're approving it and you're approving that'll be in the operating budget. Right? That's where it's coming from.
Yeah,
but I'm all in.
you're all in. Okay. Thank you very much all for coming. Please get out and vote. It's very important. Again, we don't have a lot of people running. So get in there next year. Come and let your voice be heard. Go to some school board meetings, go to some selectmen's meeting, planning board meetings, zoning board, because they are right. When we are out on Facebook, it's easy to criticize when there have been opportunities to get involved and we haven't had the time or inclination. So get out there and do your part. And thank you all very much for coming.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks for having us.